Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill and the Miami Hurricane fans know this. They've been saying it in the comments section as well. This defense has been kind of a liability over the last couple of weeks, and you've had Cam Ward kind of pulling Miami out of the fire multiple times. But I think a lot of Miami Hurricane fans as well kind of said, look, if you're playing these games every single week, you're going to get got. And Georgia Tech got them this afternoon. This Miami Hurricanes defense still, for the last couple of weeks, it's just come out and looked unprepared every single week. And you look at the talent specifically in that front seven and say, Dill, I was running my mouth all offseason long saying this front seven should be one of the best units, not only in the ACC, but in the country. They're not creating negative plays. They're not really pressuring the quarterback. And then the secondary, they're trying to figure it out, but they simply can't. Want to get into kind of just some brief observations from this Miami Hurricanes team. Now, before we get into it, as always, the Miami Hurricane fans, it's been a blast talking about this program for the last couple of weeks. And as always, you guys show a ton of support to the boys. For this one, it's going to be a little bit more negative. Let it fly in the comment section. I'm sitting here, Dylan, you can vouch for this, like just as frustrated as I think a lot of Miami Hurricane fans are as well, because you look at this offense, it wasn't great today for the first time pretty much all year. It just feels like you're kind of wasting Cam Ward with how bad this Hurricanes defense has been. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Look, Miami put up 436 total yards. They only scored 23 points. Didn't operate as well as used to seeing them operate in the red zone. But at the end of the day, like, this Miami Hurricanes defense is the problem. What jumped out to you in terms of where Miami is struggling on the defensive side of the football?
I mean, honestly, the big issue is we kind of knew the secondary had some questions. The safety position is really, really
So
poor.
bad.
They don't tackle. They don't fit runs, especially on the perimeter particularly well. They don't fit screens well. But you look at this defensive line, I don't want to totally acquit them. They're good and they make things happen at times, but they play a really undisciplined brand of ball. I mean, you see Tyler Barron not playing his gap. It felt like quite consistently today when they run stunts, they don't maintain their leverage. Again, those issues that had in the Virginia Tech, the Cal game, they're still there. This defensive line, for as talented as it is, needs to play better football, needs to play as a unit much better than they do. Because, again, they need to be relied upon for this defense to work.
In the rushing attack, Tyler Barron was an absolute disaster today. And it was obviously Georgia Tech is either running jet sweeps to Tyler Barron's side or just going off tackle. Tyler Barron's not setting an edge worth a dang. And like that, when you have a guy that is as talented as Tyler Barron is, and Dill, it's tough for me to get on him so much because it's almost like he might be being asked to do something else. But historically, when you're an edge defender playing the play side on the run game, you're normally setting the edge, not letting the running back get outside your outside shoulder.
Georgia Tech frankly, if he's asked to be doing something else, then they need to be doing something else on defense. Because, again, they had no answer for that jet sweep. It was very consistent. It was very easy. So, again, I think probably Tyler Barron just isn't making the plays he's supposed to make, is getting a little bit greedy, getting caught inside trying to make big plays and giving up big plays on the other side of it. So, again, that needs to be better. I think that defensive line in general, still letting QBs out of the pocket. So that unit, it's just not playing well enough to mask a secondary that just straight up I don't think is particularly good.
100% agree. And I think the second part I want to address is the linebacker play. Thought Jaden Alderman played a really good football game.
He did play good.
Everybody else, and man, Kiko, I again, another one of those guys that I thought he'd be an All-American caliber linebacker. I mean, he was an All-ACC caliber linebacker. If he just took a step in the right direction, you're looking at one of the best off-ball backers in the country. He's regressed so much. And I remember us having this conversation Friday night after the Virginia Tech game saying, hey, Kiko played a bad game, but we kind of trust that he's going to figure it out. Multiple weeks where he's not fitting the run the right way, where he's missing tackles in space. And that's another storyline. We might be overcomplicating it in terms of talking about scheme and setting the edge. At the end of the day, when you have an opportunity to bring a ball carrier to the ground in space, you have to do it much more consistently than this Hurricanes team did. It starts with their captain on defense, Kiko, but it kind of permeates to every single position, every single player on this Miami Hurricanes defense.
And honestly, look, some of the young linebackers I thought played pretty good in today's game. So again, I'm not saying you necessarily make a change, but you need to shuffle the personnel a little bit where those guys are getting a little more burn. I thought Chase Smith, for a young guy who I don't think you would expect a ton from, had a pretty solid game. Pruitt looked pretty good in his own right. So I'm not saying Kigomawino necessarily doesn't play anymore, but like they probably should be juggling this personnel a little bit and letting some of these other linebackers get a little bit
To
more
be
run.
honest, I think you might give Kiko a break and maybe go back to him, but just give him a week to like collect himself and try to get back to the form you saw in 2023. Because I was kind of with you, like, hey, stick with Kiko. We know what he can be. Then it's like every single week, and today it was about as bad as it looked. You know what I mean? So we'll see what Miami decides to do there. The secondary, outside of OJ Frederic, I don't trust a single name in the back end. Like even some of the guys that we had some confidence going in, like Daryl Porter, played a lot of football, quality football, reliable piece. He is not tackling well, barbecue chicken and man coverage. Let's get into a little bit of the scheme here where Miami's kind of in a predicament here where they don't have guys that can keep up in man coverage. We saw at the end of the Zaquan Patterson man coverage, 3rd and long, gives it up. But they also can't play zone coverage very well because their eye discipline is an absolute disaster. Dill, like Lance Gidry.
I think the fundamental problem is I don't really trust any safeties. And again, I don't know that the corners are as big of the problem. Like, are they playing particularly great? Probably not. Frederic, again, he's playing really well.
Dog.
But those safeties give you very limited in terms of being scheme versatile, if you will, because I don't think they play good man coverage. They don't play good. Like, they just don't do. They're not getting enough from that position in general. So again, like you can talk scheme, but like those safeties just need to play better football. Powell needs to play better football. I don't really think he can be a back end safety. I think he plays okay at the nickel at times, but him being a deep safety, it just doesn't feel like it's working. Obviously, Zaquan didn't play a particularly great game, so I don't really know where they go at that safety spot, but it doesn't look great.
Well, look, we knew it was a problem, and that's why we were so excited for like a guy like Mish just to give some stability into that room. Another thing is turnovers. I mean, again, last week Miami gave up yards, but we're forcing some turnovers. Didn't force turnover. You're not creating turnovers. You're not creating negative plays, and you're giving up explosive plays like that. That's just a bad recipe to having a consistently good defense. And we'll probably do like a deeper dive into what's going on. And we did it that last week, and it was a disaster last week on the film. I'm sure it's going to be another disaster.
In fairness, I thought the interior played pretty good towards the second half of that football game. Like you did see them starting to make some plays, be able to make some negatives in the run and force them into bad situations. But again, if you're going to give up 3rd and longs relatively routinely, it kind of masks what they do kind of at times in terms of what their production is from the middle. So again, like I don't think they played a great game, but towards the end of the game, I thought the defensive line turned it on a little bit. It's just the secondary, like they don't capitalize on the chances that D-line was giving them.
Yeah, 9 of 14 against them, 9 of 14 on 3rd downs for Georgia Tech offense that you kind of knew they couldn't throw. Like Haynes King was not in there throwing the ball. I think he threw the football 5 times in that football game. That's just not good enough. And look, Dill, I think the bright side here, and I want to talk a little bit about the offense, but the bright spot, if there is a bright spot, is I do think from a personnel standpoint, this Hurricanes defensive line can take over games. And if Miami wants to be a threat in the college football playoffs, they need to start taking over some games and taking some pressure off the back end because we know this is not going to be a great unit. I don't think they have good enough players back there. Can you mask some of those problems with a dominant defensive line? This defensive line just needs to create more negative plays for this defense. Switching over quickly to the offensive side of the football, Cam Ward, the book is kind of out on how you want to give Miami some problems. Like keep Miami's offense off the field, kind of break up the rhythm. Georgia Tech had a 11-minute touchdown drive, I believe, in the second quarter that was started in the first, blended to the second. I don't think it's a coincidence that Cam Ward came out and kind of looked lost a little bit. You know, like when you're sitting on the when you're sitting on the
they put those yards up, but like they're not on the field enough. Like that is again the defense. Like you look at kind of what they scored. It's not a horrible game from the defense, not a great game, but like again, just having 10-minute drives, like that's not. You just can't score the way Miami, I think, is going to want to score and be able to put pressure on defenses when your defense lets that happen.
Georgia Tech punted the ball 2 times. You know, you talk about Georgia Tech shortening the game, say, hey, we don't want to get into a shootout with this Hurricanes offense. They didn't allow it to get that way. And that's kind of the story of the game on offense. Again, Cam Ward had about a quarter of not very good football. Obviously played better in the second half. It just look, it wasn't enough. And I think a lot of Miami Hurricane fans were sitting there 2 minutes left, 80 yards to go, saying we feel pretty confident. And again, you should feel confident in that situation if you're Miami, because you've seen it time and time again. But at the end of the day, you don't, at some point, you can't be in this position every single week. And that's kind of where Miami seems to be. 3 of 10 on third downs, 1 of 4 on fourth downs, bad penalties. That's what did it for this Miami Hurricanes team. Dill, we'll probably get into 2 different conversations with Miami. One, what needs to fix, what needs to be cleaned up on this defense. Again, it seems like every single week they just come out. And my overall take, kind of rambling on, they just look confused. Like, how many times do we see safeties and cornerbacks and linebackers looking behind each other and just like don't really know what they're doing, getting a line late? Like, it just seems like an ill-prepared defense. There's still a path to the playoffs, and you're still an extremely dangerous team as long as Cam Ward's playing quarterback. But if you want to be a contender in the playoffs, you got to fix some of these things. And they obviously caught up to them tonight or this afternoon against Georgia Tech. We'll sign off there. Miami Hurricane fans, I'm sure you're all as frustrated as me, probably more frustrated than me. Let it fly in the comment section. A lot of stuff that you guys are going to say, we'll probably talk about tomorrow morning. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.